KI presents Simply Genius. Workforces fluctuate, workflow evolves, work environments change. Genius architectural walls offer one of the fastest move rates in the industry without foregoing structural integrity or aesthetics. It's the intelligent solution to room reconfiguration. To enjoy all the benefits of Genius Wall, proper product installation is important. To start, assemble all necessary tools and hardware as detailed in your Genius Wall installation manual. After organizing and arranging all your tools and hardware, review your shop print and installation manual. Keep them near for frequent reference. Before installing any components, it is critical to accurately complete the ceiling channel layout. An accurate layout ensures a smooth, proper-fitting installation. The dimensions shown on the plan indicate the center of the panel where the ceiling clip will attach. There is a variety of ceiling grid styles, each requiring a clip designed to fit with it. 15/16 clip. Install the 15/16 clip along with the backer plate and turn onto the grid. Then fully tighten the set screw. 9/16 clip. The 9/16 clip installs in a similar manner to the 15/16 clip. Install backer plate and fully tighten the set screw. Fine line grid. T-bolts come with assorted washers and nuts. Use the appropriate washers and nuts to space track properly away from ceiling. Fully tighten lock nut before installing track. Drywall fasteners. If steel stud is behind the track, use drywall screws. If there is no structure behind the gypsum, use the appropriate drywall anchor. Recessed grid spacers. If the ceiling grid is recessed, it will be necessary to add a spacer to the ceiling clip before the ceiling channel is mounted. Use the proper amount to space the channel correctly to the ceiling tiles. There are two types of ceiling channels. The recessed ceiling channel fits inside the top of the panel and is recessed behind the face of the panel. The flush ceiling channel is wider and captures the panel on the outside so that the entire width of the panel fits inside the flush ceiling channel. Using the floor plan for reference, work in pairs to secure ceiling clips to the grid. Hanging the ceiling channel. Measure from a wall, column, or other starting point to the first attachment. Attach ceiling clip to grid at measured location. Fully tighten ceiling clip. Before installing the ceiling channel, poke holes through the gasket to allow the stud from the ceiling clip to easily pass through. Measure to the first clip. Transfer dimension to the ceiling channel. Mark the channel with a square. Cut the channel accordingly so subsequent attachment points land on the channel slotting module. After cutting, file the cut edge of the channel to remove sharp burrs. After positioning and securing the first piece of channel on caddy clips, make sure the channel cannot slide. Also, make sure that ceiling tiles are not lifted and that there are no light gaps between the ceiling and the channel. Continue to install the ceiling channel per the plan. Factory-made corners are provided for corner conditions. Splice plates are also supplied for butting two pieces of ceiling channel together. Verify all measurements. Flush ceiling channel installs in a similar fashion to recessed, but is supplied with preformed corners and a larger splice plate. Uncrate the appropriate panel based on your floor plan. To save time and prevent damage to the panels, install panels onto the track as soon as they are unloaded. Carefully cut shrink wrap from panels. When carrying the panels, make sure the panel hooks are engaged in the locations shown to avoid dropping the panels. Stand the panel on its base slightly inclined. Using the provided installation grapple hooks, hook into the notch located near the bottom of either side of the panel. Hold panel securely, then slide panel into position under the ceiling channel, engaging the top of the panel with the ceiling channel. Panels taller than 10 feet may ship in 2 sections. You will need to splice the upper and lower halves together. Loosen the screw holding the splice in upper panel. Remove the frame screw from the panel section that does not have splice plates attached. Slide the 2 sections together, guiding the splice plates into the panel. Notice that the holes are intentionally misaligned, which forces the panels together tightly. Then start the screw on an angle and drive it in until tight. Then retighten first screw. If electrical wires will pass into the ceiling, first cut a hole in the ceiling channel. Carefully feed conduit through as you stand the panel. All Genius wall panel shells can easily be removed for maintenance and access to cabling or electric wiring within each panel. To remove a panel shell, first remove the base cover and pry the shell off the frame by starting in a corner with a screwdriver. Continue to pull the shell straight off the frame, disengaging the plastic bead from the groove in the frame. To reinstall the shell, place the bottom of the shell on the 2 small metal ledges located on the bottom of the frame. Press the shell back onto the frame. With the panel now in place, a series of adjustments should be completed. Using a 3/4 inch wrench, channel locks, or pliers, readjust the level and height of the panel by turning the bolts of the bottom glide. Check plumb of the panel with a level. Panel heights must be equal. After completing all initial adjustments, further adjustment can be made visually by placing panels side by side and adjusting the height until achieving a tight seal between the edges of the panels. Consult your installation manual for complete minimum and maximum adjustments to the panels. Keep in mind that the bottom clearance for a 4-inch base should be between 2 7/8 and 3 3/8 inches. 5-inch base should be between 3 7/8 and 4 3/8 inches. These guidelines will keep the door undercut in an acceptable range. Connect properly aligned and adjusted panels by installing panel connector strips into the flared vertical grooves on the edge of the panels. There are three styles of panel connectors. The recessed panel connector has rubber fins that will allow furniture to hang into the slotted vertical posts of a solid panel. The flush connector installs flush to the face of the panel and can be painted, anodized, or upholstered. The shallow connector, when installed, is set back from the face of the panel. The connectors have two legs. Fit one leg into the groove of each panel and press into place. Check to make sure the connector strip is flush with the top of the panel or section elevation. When panels have multiple finishes, it may be necessary to cut the panel connectors at the section elevation and butt them together. To connect a furniture module post, hold the post up against the adjacent panels and fasten the post to the panels with the outside connectors, first making sure the post and the connectors are even with the top of the panel. For the inside corners, one of the fins of a recessed connector will need to be sliced off with a utility knife. Install this connector first, positioning it so that the cut fin is facing into the corner. Next, install a second connector so that the fin facing into the corner is curled over the top of the connector with the fin cut off. Prepare the building module ceiling channel corner piece by snipping through the tips of the channel to expose the laser-cut tabs. After planning ahead of time what height the panels will be, break out as many tabs as needed to install the post, but not so many that the opening would be visible once the post is installed. Hold the building module post up against the end that will meet at the center line of the second panel. Attach the post with a building module connector on the side facing the second panel and one of the standard connectors on the opposite side of the post. Slide the second panel over until it touches the building module connector, forming what will look like a standard panel connection. Install panel connectors on both sides. Wall posts are spring-loaded telescoping channels that make up for inconsistencies of the building structure. Do not cut the shrink wrap until after it is installed. Measure from the floor to the top of the adjacent panel. Using a square, mark and cut the wall post to height. The wall post is now ready to put in place. After it is lined up with the end of the panel, cut the shrink wrap to release the post. Remove all of the shrink wrap before installing the panel connectors. If a wall post is installed next to a small panel return, door frame, or clear opening, use a wall post locking bracket to prevent the spring pressure from pushing a joining component out of position. Secure the bracket to the floor using masonry screws. A universal connector can be used as a wall starter or off-module connector. Hold the universal connector against the surface that it will attach to, checking that it is plumb and at the proper height. Attach it to the surface with a series of appropriate fasteners through the pre-punched holes. A panel can now be attached to the universal connector. KI ships 4 styles of doors, including pivot, hinge, sliding doors, and clear openings. Level adjoining panels in preparation for door frame installation. Before installing the door frame, check the width of the opening at several places to ensure it is consistent with the door frame module size. Note that the panel connectors for a door frame at an inside corner are longer than the rest. These are referred to as full-length connectors. They should be cut to go from the top of the shell all the way to the floor. This finishes off the base cover to the door frame. Without it, a gap will be noticeable. If possible, hang one door before continuing with the remainder of the job. Install appropriate door hardware per manufacturer's instructions and verify proper function. Pivot door frames have an adjustable base assembly that telescopes to accommodate floor variations. There is no need to cut the door frame. Level adjacent panels and verify opening. Connect frame to adjoining panels with connector strips. After making the connection, check headers and verticals for plumb and level. Then verify opening size for door leaf. Now, install bottom door pivot assembly so pivot center line is 1 5/8 from the bull nose of the door and centered in the mortise. This will make the doors swing open. Repeat procedure for top door pivot assembly. Install center line 1 3/8 from bull nosed edge of door. Loosen the acorn and jam nut on the lower pivot and adjust it so that it is 1 3/4 from the inside of the frame. Next, place the bottom of the door over the acorn nut so that it engages with the pivot bearing in the bottom of the door. Insert spring, then the door top pivot pin into the top pivot holder. Face the release slot toward the bull nose edge of the door so that the door removal tool can only be inserted when door is open. Make sure pin engages in top pivot plate. Adjust door height to provide a 1/8 inch clearance between the door and header. This gap should also be the same on the sides. Sometimes it may be necessary to adjust the adjacent panels to achieve even reveals. These adjustments should be made to eliminate light gaps. Check that the door latches properly. The holes in the latch plate are slightly off-center. Removing the screws from the latch plate and flipping it over will increase or decrease how tightly the door latches. The entire strike assembly can also be flipped to change the door to the opposite hand. This will reverse the door from swinging in to swinging out or vice versa. The entire frame can then also be flipped around to change the hand of the door swing. Hinge door frames connect the same as pivot frames, but do not have an adjustable base. Level adjacent panels. Measure from the top of each adjacent panel to the floor. Then transfer the dimensions to each side of the door frame. Cut to size. The door frame has a height adjustment glide on the bottom of each vertical frame member. Adjust the glide so the door frame is level. After connecting the frame, recheck the door opening in several locations. Attach the hinges to the door leaf. It will be necessary to pre-drill holes for the screws to keep the wood from splitting. Stand the door in the frame opening and use blocks and shims to raise the door leaf until the hinges align with the hinge locations on the door frame. Lightly start all the hinge screws before fully tightening them. You can adjust the strike plate by loosening the screws and sliding the plate in or out until the door latches properly. Re-tighten screws. A 2-hole strike plate is used with deadbolt locks. A 1-hole strike plate is also available. Check that the door swings freely in the frame with a consistent gap between the leaf and the frame. The glides have a plate on the bottom where it can be secured to the floor. This will be necessary to keep the frame in place while the door is operated over time. Sliding doors include the following assemblies: lower guide assembly, track assembly, trolleys and stops assemblies, trolley attachment brackets, lower guide channel, and valance and attachment clips. Prior to standing the adjacent panel, install the lower guide to the floor channel next to the trailing edge of the door. Place the guide plate and the backer plate beneath the floor channel. From the top of the floor channel, thread the attachment screws through the floor channel and the guide plate. Sliding door frames do not have an adjustable base. Measure from the top of each adjacent panel to the floor. Then transfer the dimensions to each side of the door frame. Cut to size. Install the frame similar to a pivot or butt hinge door. Use the elevation drawing on the floor plan to determine where the track should end. Measure and cut the sliding door track to size. Position the sliding door track by butting one end up against the door jamb, making sure that the top of the track is flush with the top of the door jamb. Mark the track for screw locations, making sure a screw is located in each vertical member and 2 additional screws between each of these. Level the track and hold it in place while attaching it with self-drilling screws through the upper flange and into the panel frame. Attach the track to the door jamb using the provided L brackets and screws. Note that the shorter screw goes into the door jamb. Place the door stops and trolleys into the door track. Orient them so there is a rubber stop at each end and the 2 trolleys are in the middle. Insert the guide channel by inserting it into the bottom of the door and attaching it with screws. Attach the trolley brackets to the top of the door where there are 4 pre-drilled holes for each bracket. Line up the bracket with the holes and attach the brackets with screws. Before hanging the door leaf, first install the base cover that will be directly behind the door leaf. Hang the sliding door by placing the bottom of the door over the lower guide block and fitting the trolleys into the trolley brackets. Level the door by turning the hanging bolt of the trolley with a wrench. After the door leaf is level, lock it onto the trolley by tightening the jam nut on the trolley bolt. Then tighten door stops to properly limit travel of door. KI ships the valance longer than required. Both ends have a bent flange, so the valance can be used for right or left-hand doors. The side of the valance that butts up against the door jamb will need to be trimmed. Measure from the door jamb to the far edge of the adjacent panel and cut the valance to length. Slide the plastic clips evenly apart into the valance cover and snap the assembly onto the sliding door track. If the door has a lock, the door leaf will be pre-machined to accept the door lock. Insert the lock body into the mortise and pre-drill holes for mounting the lock body. Insert the lock cylinder and thumb turn. Thread them in 2 or 3 turns, making sure to use the deeper rosette included. Check to see that the keyhole and thumb turn are oriented in the proper vertical direction. Then secure the cylinder and thumb turn with the set screws. Attach the faceplate around the latch. Extend the latch and slide the door closed to the door jamb. Slide the latch plate up into position and mark its location so that the latch will engage about 1/4 inch. Slide the door away and pre-drill for the latch plate screws. Attach the latch plate to the door jamb with 1/2 inch flathead screws. Slide the door back and test the lock. If the latch does not engage the plate smoothly, adjust the tabs on the latch plate with a pair of pliers. The full height sliding door installs in a similar manner to the transom height door, except the top of the sliding door track is positioned flush with the top of the panel. Attach the track to the upper horizontal frame on glass panels or through the panel shell and into the horizontal frame member on solid panels. Secure the panels to the floor by inserting and tightening the carpet gripper screws approximately 1 turn past finger tight, or stopping before floor channel rises. A neoprene gasket must be applied to the bottom of the floor channel on hard floors to prevent slipping. Position the base cover in the location and mark it for cutting. Base covers come in 10-foot lengths and are fit onto the walls in a continuous manner. The base covers are cut to fit. Be sure that the base cover ends are clean and square. It may be necessary to trim off clamp marks left over from the painting or anodizing processes from the ends of the base cover. After cutting, remove burrs with a file. Engage the plastic holder onto the floor channel and firmly press into place. Corner base covers arrive pre-formed from KI. Mark and cut to length. If additional corner or angled base covers are needed, they can be made by scoring the back of the base cover. The score is best made with a sliding miter saw. Lock the height of the blade so that it will remove approximately 1/2 of the thickness of the base cover. Make 2 passes side by side. The cover is now ready for bending. Trim the base cover at the adjustable base of door frames. Certain situations, such as wall posts or door frames without an adjustable base, may require that the base cover overlap slightly onto the frame. Removing the attachment slot from the back of the cover will be necessary. Insert fiberglass soundproofing strips in assembly void after installing one side of base cover. Then, install the other side of the base cover. Once the installation is complete, Genius walls can significantly limit noise pollution, offering a sound transmission class rating of 44 to 48 for solid panels. A cornice cap is used for bracing freestanding panels. Cornice caps come in 10-foot lengths and are cut to size so that the seam is at the center of a panel. Corners are supplied pre-formed. The same attachment clip is used for solid or glass panels. Orient the clip with legs down for solid panels and legs up for glass panels. Place cap into the top of the panel at an angle. Strike firmly with a mallet to engage cap. Tighten screws. In addition to its obvious attributes, Genius architectural walls help comply with the U.S. Building Council's Green Building Design and LEED. If additional installation information is required, including rating information for seismic and cleanroom applications, please contact the KI Wall Department.